Miss Ford, I have a question. You hear from Tupac lately?
My addiction is not one of the cool addictions like sex addiction.
You are nothing but an illegitimate bastard.
So I have made many resolutions in my life, and I have kept very few of them, unfortunately. And that is due to the fact that I have very little willpower. So I'm always going to eat until I feel gross. I'm always going to watch TV even if there's nothing on. I'm always going to stay up late when I got to wake up early. That's just kind of, I've come to learn that is part of being me. But another part of being me is that I can seriously obsess about things if you give me half a chance. And when it comes to resolutions, I often use my obsessiveness to try and counterbalance my lack of willpower. So what a resolution for me typically looks like is I resolve to do something. I quickly realize I'm not going to have the willpower to see it through. So I turn it into something insane and extreme that I can potentially obsess over so that I might be able to get through it. So what that looks like is something like, I'm not eating healthy enough. I'm going to become a vegan. Or, I watch too much television. We should sell our TVs on Craigslist. And then my wife, who's ever the voice of reason in my life, says, no, that's dumb. We're not going to do that. And that's the end of it. And another thing that I do with resolutions is I love to buy shit. I sort of feel like, if I'm going to do something, I should do it right. I should get the gear, kind of figure out like, I'm definitely going to do this, so I should treat myself to this awesome stuff in advance. So I decided we were going to become a camping family, and I went to REI and bought a whole bunch of camping shit. We don't really camp all that often. I decided one year I was going to read more. Got to have a Kindle if you're going to read more. Bought the Kindle, recently gave it to my son. I'm a software developer, so one year I resolved that I was going to teach myself how to write apps at night in my free time. Straight to the Mac store, $1,500 laptop. Never wrote an app. One year I resolved to run. I was going to become a runner. And any good runner will tell you cannot run without a $200 Garmin satellite watch. So went straight out and got one of those. My running lasted about a month, mostly because running is just awful. So that didn't last. I recently tried to pawn it off on my 13-year-old son who just took up cross country. So I was like, oh, and this thing is the best. It looks like a Star Trek device. It's like 10 years old, so it's enormous. So I was like, you put it on, you go outside, you hit the button, you probably have to wait a few minutes for a satellite signal, but once that happens, you run around the block, you download it, you upload it to the app, and then you can see a map of you running around the block like 5 times. He's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, Dad. I think I'm good, though. I think I'm good. So I've basically got a long history of like gear I don't use and resolutions I haven't kept. But there was one time when it all kind of came together. I had the gear, I had the obsessiveness, and it worked. And it all worked around a Wii Fit. And we got it for our family one Christmas, and I thought to myself, all right, every January I make the same resolution, get healthier, exercise more. I'll try this with the Wii Fit. So I set it up, and the first thing you have to do on Wii Fit is you have to build your me. And this is like a little cartoon version of yourself that does all the same things that you're doing. So if you're doing push-ups, your little cartoon guy's doing push-ups. And you have to build, and you can kind of design it to look like yourself, so you give it the right eyes, and the right eyebrows, and the right hair, and I get it all set up. We've both got dark hair, so we're basically twins. And I log in, and I start going through all the stuff, and it weighs me, and it has me do all these balance exercises, and it tells me my Wii Fit age is like 61, and I'm like, that's probably not very good. And then it says you need to set a goal. And your current body mass index is 26. Your ideal body mass index is 22. Why don't we set that as your goal? And I think, great, 4 points, how hard could that be? Turns out I had to go from 190 pounds to 159 pounds to make that reality come true. But I start to kind of obsess over this 22. And every morning I wake up and I go into the living room and I start doing my Wii Fit workout. And it starts off, you get on the balance board and you weigh yourself, and your little cartoon character comes on and he's like, "Good morning, Joe. Your current BMI is," and there's a drum, it's like, 26, and he jumps up in the air, and he's like, "Yeah." So it's like, all right. So every morning for like a month, I go downstairs and I do my exercises and I get weighed, and every morning my little cartoon guy comes on and he's like, "Your BMI is 26. And I'm like, fuck! This isn't working. So I quickly realize that exercise is not gonna cut it. And I decide I've got to start watching my weight and watching what I eat. And for a normal person, this would mean, oh, maybe I won't have seconds, or maybe I'll skip dessert, but that's not how I roll. So I build a spreadsheet. And on this spreadsheet, I track everything I put into my mouth. And it's like 4 potato chips, 27.4 calories. And I'm like deconstructing recipes and figuring out how many calories are in chicken stock and just like all sorts of nonsense. And it turns out, if you exercise and don't eat enough, you will lose weight. And so my little guy starts at 25 and it's 24 and I'm like all pumped up. And I keep obsessing over this 22. And eventually I get there. I get to 22 as a BMI and I weigh 159 pounds and I am very proud of myself. And I feel great. And I remembered it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And for you old schoolers, it was a Monti StorySLAM at Olivia's, like 2 or 3 venues ago. And I was telling a story and I kind of wore a tight shirt and I was like, I've been working out, I'm looking good. So I get up and I tell my story. And at the end of the show, someone who comes to the Monti a lot pulls my wife aside and she says, "Is everything okay? Joe looks kind of sick." And I just wanted to make sure you guys were doing all right. So it turns out that my healthy Wii Fit weight is also the weight at which I start to look terminally ill. So I thought, well, if that's the just rewards for my stoicism and investment in this dream, forget it. So I stopped doing Wii Fit, I stopped with the spreadsheet. And it turns out, if you eat too much and stop exercising, you will gain weight. But it's January, and as I do every January, I've resolved to get fit. So if you see me in 6 months and I look sick, you'll know I've stuck with it. Thanks.
All right, keep it going.